Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Guerilla Cricket.
Today we're going to focus on the oldest of our first-class counties. Surrey, Middlesex, Lancashire, Yorkshire, it's none of those. Founded in 1839, it is Sussex. 3 times county champions. Their illustrious history boasts the likes of C.B. Fry, David Shepherd, Ted Dexter, Tony Greig, Ranjitsinghi, Maurice, Tate, John Snow, to name but a few. Now they are promoting some young and exciting young talent like Tom Haines, Clarke, Archie Lenham, and blending that with the likes of Stephen Finn and new arrivals, Cheshire, the name I can never say, Cheteshwar Pujara, I beg his pardon, and Mohammad Riswan. The CEO of Sussex is a familiar sporting name, Rob Andrew. Rob, a huge welcome to Guerilla Cricket.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure. Now, first, a little bit about you, maybe. Many, of course, will know you as from rugby as a player and administrator, but you do also have a cricketing background. Tell us a little bit about what led you to Sussex.
Well, sort of like lots of things, it happened by chance, really. I've always been a massive cricket lover. Played a lot at school and university. Still try to play very badly. Still can't get it off the square for those that remember me playing a long time ago. But it's just rugby and cricket went hand in glove for me at school and university. And I've been very lucky to be involved in both of those sports for a long time. Did a long time in rugby as a player, coach, director of rugby, administrator, time at the governing body at the RFU, and just felt that I fancied a change of scene, and the opportunity came up at Sussex, love it, absolutely love it, love the county game, love cricket, and really enjoying what we're trying to achieve at Sussex, and obviously getting stuck into some of the other political issues that seem to turn up in sport every now and again.
I'm sure they're going to pop up. You did once get Michael Atherton out for a duck. Is that true?
Well, it is true. I think it goes back to Yorkshire Lancashire second team, actually, about 1980, early 80s, something or other. So long ago that neither he nor I either want to remember or can remember. I think, as I keep saying, I think Athers was only about 12 actually at the time, so it was a bit unfair.
Well, his lad's doing all right. His lad made 80 for us the other day, so that was all pretty good.
Yeah, no, it looks like a chip off the old block, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He does play a bit like him as well. So Sussex has this fantastically long history, 163 years. Are you finding now, as you sort of plan ahead and think about this season and going forward, are you still able to grow the membership in terms of numbers and value? I've got to be honest, I popped onto the website and I found memberships were currently not available. So how are you finding the battle to grow that membership at the moment?
Yeah, look, it is quite difficult for membership numbers itself. We're doing pretty well at holding them at about 3,500-4,000, which is where we've sort of been for quite some time now, actually. And as everybody knows, the balance between the red ball and the white ball debate is something that we're all fighting with. We took a decision to take our Blast memberships out of our red ball memberships a few years ago as well. So that operates separately. So we have season tickets for the Blast, and obviously do well with the Blast sales. So it's just we're in pretty good shape, considering some of the challenges of the red ball cricket, which I'm sure we'll come on to, about when it's played, the time of year, the marginalisation of it. So look, it's very clear that we're not in the 1950s and 60s or 70s, when the people seemed to have a bit more time. People have very busy lives watching red ball cricket at a county level. on a Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday during the week is tough for people. That's where streaming comes in. There's a huge interest in county cricket, as we know. People grow up probably because their grandparents, their granddad took them to the first county match whenever they started watching cricket. And they could be anywhere in the world now supporting Sussex or Lancashire or Kent, Somerset, whoever. They could be in Singapore, they could be in west coast of the USA, and we've got people all over the world. So there's huge interest in cricket, in county cricket, and we're still in good shape, and that's pretty important given the last 2 years that we've had.
Well, you've touched on a couple of things there, because you talked about history and changing sort of landscape, really. Given that changing landscape, how easy or challenging is it to kind of stay relevant as that landscape shifts? Because we all think, we all understand different attention spans, different types of media that people consume, different formats of the game, multiple formats of the game being played, too many, some would argue, for the good of all of them. Relevance is such an important word for a sporting organisation that kind of sits at the centre of a community, and yet still has to serve that community becomes in a way somewhat more fragmented. How do you balance, if you like, the old and the new?
Yeah, it's a great question, and actually one that is really difficult to answer, and one that is something that cricket perhaps more than any of the other major sports is grappling with, because it's got so many moving parts, and we have to work out. We have to go with the marketplace, because clearly, if you push against the market, that you're not going to survive in any industry. So, in sports, no different. I think we're just struggling a little bit at the moment to get the balance right, and to understand really that we are heading down the road of two different sports, and we have to work out how they sit side by side and how they can both work together for the benefit of the whole game. And it's a difficult. Look, I've been involved for 5 years, and I came in just as the new competition, which was going to be a T20 competition, had been signed off and agreed. And we, in a way, it feels like we've had 5 years of haggling over how it all sits together. Then COVID came along. We've only had 1 year of the 100, and we're still trying to work it out, if I'm perfectly honest. But, you talk about relevance, and that is a great question. I don't think cricket's ever been more relevant in a county like Sussex, quite frankly. I think it's growing across the whole county. We're not just about the men's first team. We're about women's cricket. We're about club cricket, 200 clubs in the league, 350 teams playing one league in Sussex. We probably try and argue we've got the biggest league in world cricket, as well as the oldest county cricket club. I'm not sure whether that's true, but we have disability, D40 disability teams, visually impaired teams. The disability team will play at Hove this summer against Surrey. Mm-hmm. We've got more kids interested in cricket and playing cricket, more girls and women's sections in cricket clubs than we've ever had, doubled over the last 3 or 4 years. So the relevance question is a really important one, but it's very far-reaching. And then, obviously, at the very top end of the game, we produce England players, which is part of our role, not our total role. And obviously, we want to be successful as a club in its own right. And clearly, we have had some challenges on that, and we can come on to that. But we produced 6 players played in England teams last year from Sussex across all formats. Test cricket, 50 over, and international T20. So we're hugely relevant to the game, as are the other 18 counties. And it's a vast history, but a vast infrastructure that those who wish to sort of tamper with it, I think, do so they're a huge peril because, it's only 10 years down the line that you realise what damage you may have done to a sport if you tamper with it too much. And we've seen that happen in other sports time and time again.
Which sport? I mean, clearly you have interesting experience in other sports that you can talk to. Do you see any parallels anywhere from your Sussex experience with your other experiences?
Yeah, I think the challenges in rugby, clearly from a personal perspective, over the last 25 years, are still being battled with. The game going professional. How many clubs should you have? What's the format? What's the structure? They're still arguing about it 25 years later, and it's a really difficult thing. People do point perhaps a little bit unfairly sometimes, but to Welsh rugby about how they completely changed their whole structure from a domestic point of view, reduced the number of teams down. They're now talking about possibly going down to 3 professional teams only in Wales. Scotland are down to 2. They had 4 when it first went professional. So if you're not careful, you actually you do away with the sport. You damage it both at grassroots level, which is the critical thing, and that's the most important thing for any sport, is to ensure the grassroots and the recreational game is strong. And cricket, I think, is very strong in that area. We need to find ways of working even more together with the recreational game and the so-called non-first-class county, because the structure in cricket across the whole country is fantastic. I genuinely believe that. Stronger, in my opinion, than rugby. And with all of the first-class county structures and the national counties, as they are now called, you can be a youngster in any corner of this country. And if you're any good at cricket, you can find your way to the very top of the game. And that ultimately is a big part of what the sport is about. A big part of what counties are about is producing international players. We want all of our players to dream of playing for Sussex and then England. Because for any kid who loves their sport, and I was fortunate enough to live that dream myself, you dream of playing for your country. And if the game can provide that opportunity, which we do, then that's a huge part of why we're here.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. Now, somebody did famously once say the only people who write 5-year plans are people who plan to stay in a job 4 years, but that's a rather cynical view. But Sussex undoubtedly has one. You created it, I think, in March 2020. Tough time to be thinking, or probably the best time to be thinking ahead, because you have plenty of time indoors to do it. But you did create then a sort of a 5-year strategic plan for the county, built around sort of the vision of inspiring generations. And in that were things like inspiring the next generation, growing a game across communities, transforming women's and girls' cricket, developing the grounded infrastructure, and I think delivering high performance. That's quite a bag of objectives that you've got for the next 5 years. Let's sort of unpick one or two of those. Start a bit with the fan base. I mean, you suggested a little bit in your first comments there was a ceiling in some areas, but not in others. So, what are sort of the main initiatives, I guess, that and I'm going to call it the fan base in its broadest sense. I'm not just going to talk about the 3,500-4,000 consistent membership, which I'm delighted is still there. But in the broadest sense, what are the main things that Sussex is really doing to grow that fan base?
Yeah, well, I think that the main thing is connectivity with the whole of the county, and working with all of our schools, all of our clubs, in particular, because we have the Sussex Cricket Foundation, our old recreational board, if you like, sits within Sussex Cricket Limited now. So we are completely joined as one organisation, which not many counties do. A lot of county boards work closely with their first-class county, but actually we work completely together. So we are one organisation, which means that we speak with one voice across the whole of the game. And we support cricket across a whole range of activity in the whole of the county, and it's an interesting shaped county, as many of you know. It's a long way from the far east to the far west.
Yep.
But we're now joined up to such an extent that we can promote the whole of the game under one Sussex badge, which is this badge, which everybody, I hope, is very proud to be part of that Sussex family. And we've seen a massive increase in the interest in the game across, as I said right at the beginning of this, across the whole game. That fundamentally is our start point. And then obviously we want to try and then get them to be inspired to come and watch cricket at Hove. One of the ways to do that is if they see kids who've come through the system, come through their schools, through their clubs, and are then debuting for the county, as we have had slightly unusually, I have to admit, we've debuted 3 16-year-olds in the last.
Archie, I remember Archie. Archie was it in the T20 Blast? Did he play against Middlesex last season?
He did, and
huge
he debuted
batting festival.
Yeah, well, he debuted against Hampshire in the T20 on TV. Took 3 wickets on his debut.
Yes, I remember.
And Dan Ibrahim got 50 on his debut up at Headingley in June. He's the youngest player in the history of the county championship, in all 100 and however many years of the county championship. The youngest player ever to score a half century in county championship cricket. James Coles as well, and those guys are in the squad at the moment. They're still at school. We've got them off school in their Easter holidays before their exams to play first class cricket. Now, it's very unusual. We happen to have what we believe is a crop of very talented young players. And for lots of reasons, we made decisions. Some of them were for financial reasons, because I don't think people understand the challenges that sports clubs have had to go through in the last 2 years. It's almost like it's been forgotten how difficult. The last 2 years, I reckon, has been the most difficult 2 years I've ever had in sports, amateur or professional. Because we've just been in the unknown the whole time. So trying to keep the business alive, not knowing when the crisis was going to end, has been really difficult. But cricket's done a fantastic job collectively to get through this, working together with the ECB. The ECB have been brilliant through the crisis. We don't always see eye to eye on everything, and there's a few things that we need to get sorted out over the next 6 months. Mm-hmm. But in this particular area of working together to ensure the game survives, the ECB have been outstanding, and we're all now facing the next few years with a lot more optimism than we were 2 years ago, when we had no idea when we would be coming out of this crisis.
Well, I mean, if you want to pick silver linings to darker clouds, if it will, I think you could possibly look at, you mentioned it earlier, streaming. I know Somerset and I know Warwickshire, and I suspect most counties have seen not just a huge rise in the number of how people are watching them, and the volume of people watching them, but more, just as interestingly, I think, the age and profile mix of those people. Is that something Sussex has found as well?
Yeah, very much so. Look, and I think that's the other thing that we talked about at the beginning of this interview, the pace of change in modern life, the pace of change in modern sport, how you monetize it, how you view it, where you take your viewership to over the next period is changing. Who would have said 5 years ago that you might be selling TV rights to Netflix or Amazon or Disney, or it is. In the old days, it was BBC One and Two and ITV. And you and I are probably old enough to go back to remember there was only 3 TV stations. And I remember. Sorry, but it's probably true.
I'm older than you, but so yes,
I remember. I'm old enough. This is really sad. I'm old enough to remember getting our first colour television in 1973.
No, we can't go down this road. I watched the 1966 Cup final in black and white. There we go. Have I trumped you?
Yeah, you have. I was too young to watch that, but I do remember watching the 1973 FA Cup final between Leeds and Sunderland.
Oh, yeah.
And
Bob Stokoe.
Bob Stokoe running across the pitch in his trilby at the end of the game. That was the first sports event I'd watched on colour television.
Wow. There you go.
So there you go. So when you, and that was a long time ago, but we're just in a dramatically different environment, dramatically different world we're also competing. We're competing against so many other things, including the growth of esports, which I'd never even heard of until a few years ago. I didn't understand what on earth. Why would you want to watch people playing a game on the computer and you go to a ground?
We did a whole series with the cricketer of what's this? PlayStation cricket.
Yeah.
Other games are available, but we did the commentary. It was great fun.
So look, it's fascinating. I find it really fascinating, and I think cricket. I actually am really positive about cricket. I think there's a lot of doom and gloom merchants out there because, sadly, in life there seem to be lots of doom and gloom merchants about just about everything. But cricket, cricket's been dying for 300 years, and it hasn't died yet. And cricket has a remarkable ability to adapt and move with the new times. I think at the moment we just haven't worked out the answer for this particular moment in the journey. We will. There is an answer. There's always an answer. And there's a huge red ball, white ball debate, and we're in the middle of it, and we just have to find the solution. T20 hasn't been around that long in the scheme of things. IPL has been around for even less than T20, which started in England, and IPL now pretty much dominates the landscape. So we have to work all of these things in to understand how that impacts the English domestic game, and we're in the middle of that debate, to be honest. And we have to find the answer to that as soon as we can.
Well, 60% was the number of viewers, I think, for county streams were 18 to 34. That's a long, long way from the traditional view of the county match watcher. That's not blasts. That's the that's the 4-day game, which I find to be incredibly encouraging. Let's move on a little bit, because as we think about the future, but the longer term as well as the immediate issues, opening pathways and pulling through a diverse talent base, reaching out to those communities. I know, for example, the expansion of the ACE program, Middlesex have just got on board, Surrey, Warwickshire. I don't know if shaking that nationwide. What are some of the things that Sussex is doing, not just to pull through young talent as you think about pathways, but to ensure that you're reaching out to the broadest mix of talent?
Yeah, that's obviously highly pertinent question at the moment, and in for lots of reasons. Mainly because it's obviously the right thing to do, and we have to broaden the pathway and broaden the scope of interest in cricket, and then give the opportunity to those youngsters who come through. So we're through our club network, which goes back to what I said before about how involved we are with the game across the whole county. Through our club network, we've just launched 2 urban plans in Crawley and Brighton, obviously 2 of our bigger urban areas. We haven't got huge urban areas in the way that, say, a Warwickshire or a Lancashire would have. So we've got different challenges perhaps to other counties, and that's the nature of the geography. But we're working very hard in Crawley, which has a very strong Asian population, huge cricket lovers, a lot of cricket clubs expanding in Crawley. We're working very closely with the local authority to improve facilities, to ensure that there are enough grounds, because that's the other thing that clubs are finding, particularly those clubs who play on council-owned facilities.
So if you want to complain about county wickets, you want to play on the local rec a few times.
Well, there's a whole range of things there that come under this umbrella, and it's difficult. Cricket's a complicated game. It's an expensive game. It's not as easy to pick up as with football. You put your jumper down in the park and there's your goalposts and off you go. You've got a game. It doesn't work like that with cricket. You need a lot of equipment. You need a lot of quality coaching. So we're working hard in those areas to help with facility improvements, working with the UCB and others. We're working very closely with our schools to try and, with Chance to Shine, to try and get school cricket back into schools, at the junior level in particular, and in secondary schools with girls' programs in secondary schools. That's been a big change in all sport, is the drop-off of sport in schools, particularly secondary schools.
Yeah.
So we're working very hard. We have a huge project with a state school in Brighton, the Brighton Aldridge Community Academy, which has been going for nearly 6 years now, which is a brilliant project where the facilities there are absolutely outstanding. And then we do work very closely with our private schools as well, and that's something that the private schools in this country provide a great service to cricket. The facilities are outstanding. A lot of young talent. There's often a lot of criticism of it's all about private schools. What you find is that a lot of kids are given scholarships to private schools because of their cricket or because of their rugby. And sometimes that's forgotten, that actually private schools are helping the game, and they often get unfair criticism in my book for it's all about private education. Well, a lot of these kids wouldn't get that education if it wasn't for the cricket, which in turn started in the state school, started at the club, and it's an environment that we just have to keep growing and get as many kids.
But that kind of goes a little bit
in the game as we can.
Yeah, I mean that goes a little bit to the role of the county at the centre of cricket in the county. So yes, I take your point very much about the contribution of private schools, whether you like it or not, however you may feel about that. The fact is that is true, and it remains so. But the county also ensures that work done there can extend out to areas where it might not otherwise be played, to support those areas where there is talent that can't get to that. And do you feel that it is the role of the county within the community to ensure that it kind of works both ways? If I've explained that right, that you're expanding where cricket is played by enabling it, as well as by obviously keeping strong where it has traditionally been strong.
Yeah, and it's a absolutely great question, because we can't cut off our nose to spite our face. We have to strengthen the game where we can. We have to go into areas to grow the game where the game isn't actually being played at the moment, and that's a really important thing for us. And we're trying to do that across lots of different areas of the country. It's a fascinating argument, and we have to just get better. We have to keep giving opportunities to more kids who haven't had that, whether it's street cricket, starting kids off with street cricket in areas where there aren't any cricket clubs, for example, and then finding opportunities for them to go to a cricket club or bring cricket into the school that they're playing through a Chance to Shine program or a Lord's Taverners program. Just get a bat and ball in as many kids' hands as we can, and then find the right pathway for them to work their way through.
You say your purpose is inspiring a passion for cricket, and I think what you've said there is you could add the word everywhere. It isn't just about or within Sussex. I mean, but nonetheless, it isn't just where it's traditionally strong, make it stronger. It has to be build on the strength where it's strong, but ensure that you open up new audiences. And I think you've said very clearly that's a big goal, and that's key pillar of your plan, I guess.
Well, it's a huge. I mean, it is right at the forefront. That's what we're about as an organisation. That's our number one priority. Is creating a passion for cricket and giving opportunities for everybody to have a go at cricket. And then, eventually it all works up to the county first team at Hove. And then obviously we want to do well at Hove, because if we don't, people get upset and the members get upset if we're not doing as well as they'd like us to. That's all part of the sort of cricket infrastructure and the cricket journey. And then obviously that gets magnified 1 million times when you go to the international level, because once you get to that level, everybody has a view on what should or shouldn't be happening. Yeah, but that's why it's so interesting, and that's why everybody has an opinion, and that's why we're having this conversation. It's why every man and his dog, jumps in on the conversation about what's wrong, what's right, what would I do, what who needs to be sacked, who needs to be dealt with. It's the beauty of modern day sport. It was always thus, except it's now magnified 1 millionfold because of all the things that we've seen change in our lifetime around, media, social media, just the 24/7 interest in modern day life and sport.
Let's talk a little bit, if we may, about the women's game. You mentioned some of the initiatives there, because I was looking at those sort of 5 pillars that made up that plan, and one of them is very much transforming women's and girls' cricket in the county. Just tell us about a couple of the things that are helping to drive that pillar forward, if I dare call it that.
Yeah, we don't like the word pillar, but we'll let you off. We'll let you off with that, Tony.
Foundation.
Personally, I think I'm sure every sport will say this. I think it's the most important thing about cricket for the future. I think getting girls and women playing the game, and they're doing it extremely well, as we can already see, growing that base of interest and talent has got to be and is a huge priority both for the ECB, and if it isn't for all counties, it should be, because it's just the right thing to do, and it's the right thing to give girls an opportunity to play sport. I've got 3 daughters. Sport, to me, is sport should be, it doesn't matter what sport it is, but some kind of sport, some kind of exercise should be along with reading and English and maths, quite frankly, in terms of how important it is to life. We somehow have managed to lose that through successive governments over the last probably 40 or 50 years, but let's not get started on that.
No.
Otherwise we'll be here for a long time.
We'd have a series, Rob, not just the one-off interview. An interesting idea, by the way.
Yeah, well, that's, and it is just so important. And why not cricket? Girls that take up cricket absolutely love it. We have pathways. We have our Sussex Women's programme, which is based out of Backer, the state school that we talked about. We obviously feed then into the Southern Vipers, which is the regional side, which is involving Hampshire and Oxfordshire. It's a big South group that ensures that our Southern Vipers team are then feeding into the Southern Brave in the 100 and then into the England team. And we're seeing, how extraordinarily well
they will be playing matches at Hove as well as other centres, will they?
Yes, they play. The Vipers play at Hove. We were going to be a Southern Brave women's venue before COVID, and now the matches are obviously double headers at the Ageas Bowl. But no, our interest in women's cricket has been long-standing, as many people will know, going back a long time. Again, Claire Connor current ECB head of women's cricket, MCC president, long-time Sussex captain and board member. So Sussex has a huge history, and you touched on this at the very beginning. This year it's our 150th year at Hove.
Wow.
First game June the 6th against Gloucestershire, W.G. Grace was on the ground, the very same ground that we're currently playing on.
Yeah, I love going to Hove. It's a great place to visit.
So it's these things are really important to me, to sport. And I think you cast them aside. You do the sport huge damage if you do that. And the other thing which I touched on earlier was just the number of clubs now who want to have a girls section is just exploding. Clearly lots of benefits all round, and it's the right thing to do. And it's just fantastic to see the amount of girls and women that are playing cricket.
It is fantastic. You talked about Hove and its history. In the current situation, let's call it one of flux or change, although who was it said change is constant, or Bob Dylan, he not busy being born, etc., is busy dying. Change is forever. But does a club like Sussex, a non-test match ground, does it have to work harder in some ways than a Lancashire, a Yorkshire, a Notts, a Surrey? Does it mean you have to pedal that much faster and do that much more to be competitive, really, I guess?
I think we do. I think it's becoming a bigger challenge. There's undoubtedly, as the test grounds get bigger in terms of their capacities and their revenue generating potential through both the international game and the non-international game. That they are very important venues to cricket. Without the test match venues, we don't have the revenue that then feeds the whole game, including the recreational game. And the investment that the test match grounds have put in over the last decade has been amazing. You look at the international match grounds were not in great shape probably 15 years ago. And they've all invested significantly in world-class facilities now at test match venues. So there is a balancing act, and there is one of the challenges I think for cricket is that the different business models are very varied between the 18 first-class counties. There's probably a bigger difference between the business turnover of the biggest first-class county and the smallest first-class county compared to, say, the Premier League in soccer and the Premiership in rugby, where there is a difference.
I'm not talking about.
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, not necessarily talking about absolute numbers, but just the difference between the top and the bottom. There's a big difference between the top of the football and the bottom of the Premiership, but it's not as wide, I don't think, as it is between the top of, say, the financial pyramid in cricket and the bottom of the financial pyramid.
I don't know. Have you seen Watford's results when they play Manchester City? I know what I do. And I'm at the Watford end of that. That's why you always have this debate, don't you? In all sports, and then you're into the debate about promotion and relegation. Is that the right thing? Rugby, again, I keep saying, is still having that debate 25 years on. So it is more difficult, I think, and we have to try in different ways of trying to stay competitive on the field, and there are very different ways of doing that, and undoubtedly, Sussex's greatest successful period in the 2000s was based on homegrown players and a couple of outstanding overseas, and we've probably gone away from that a little bit over the last decade, and we're trying very hard to go back to that. Pujara and Riswan alongside the likes of Archie. I mean, there you go.
That's quite exciting. If you can get that balance right, it's not easy because it's competitive and everybody's trying to do the same. But we have taken a strategic decision. I know you mentioned that, 5-year plan. We all try and look, 3, 4, 5 years ahead. You as you say, you got to be a bit careful. You need to look at today and tomorrow. And it's in the current landscape, it's very difficult to look too far ahead, and particularly at the moment in cricket, because we need to know what the structure is. We need to know what the next TV deal is. We need to understand some longer term stability issues that help us plan. We're in danger of getting ourselves into a little bit of a void if we're not careful.
Well, you talked a bit about the blast, and Sussex has always filled Hove for blast games by and large with a very excitable crowd. I can remember Luke Wright blasting runs left, right, and centre for many years for you. Given the sort of the more franchise focus of the 100, the potential restructuring of the game, many people I've spoken to feel that 2 very short form games is not sustainable if you want to continue to play longer form cricket, and if you want to play one day cricket, and if you want test players who won't break down injured or given the importance of the blast, I guess the best way to ask the question is, are you seeing benefits from the 100 in terms of interest in Sussex, and how much of a concern is a potential threat to the blast for you?
Too early probably to say about the 100, because we've only had one season of it. Obviously the first season didn't happen. If I'm honest, my personal view is that I don't think it'll have a huge impact on Sussex and the blast. The Sussex blast product is very successful. People love supporting Sussex. They love coming down to Hove on a Thursday or Friday night. They have a great time. It's a great product. We have world-class players. And the second part of your question is that will be hugely damaging if we didn't have that. So I don't think there's a first-class county in the country would agree or accept any dilution of the blast. That's not what we're looking at. I think it's a much more difficult question. Probably the one you're going to ask next is, so what happens then? And that's the bit that we have to work through. The debate around 2 white ball competitions has raged ever since this new competition was mooted back in probably 2015, 2016. We've had 1 year of it. It was very successful for the women's game, hugely successful for the women's game. I think the jury is still out on the men's 100 in terms of what is the value of it to the game going forward. We have to debate that over the coming months, but you won't find a single first-class county that's going to give up on the blast. What we want is more red ball cricket in the summer. And my personal view is, and I think this is happening anyway, and I think it'll happen more and more as the game goes forward, the players will choose red ball or white ball. And I'm becoming personally more of a feeling that just let them choose. They'll choose through skills. They'll choose because of money. They'll choose because of their agents. We can't control that. You can't control the market, and it's a bit like the TV stuff. Don't fight it. Just let it happen. Mm-hmm. And let's play red ball through the 100. I would definitely play red ball through the middle of the summer. And if we're getting more and more to a point where most of the guys in the 100 are not playing much red ball cricket anyway. So just let them play red ball cricket, white ball cricket in the 100. We'll carry on playing county cricket because our members we'll probably come to Hove to watch a 4-day game anyway, rather than go to the 100. So I think we've got to think much more. We've got to think much more differently about this, and instead of trying to fit everything in, just play two separate competitions.
Well, you have actually rather preempted one of my next, and towards the nearer the last questions, timing wise. But I was going to ask you. People have drawn the connection between disappointing England Test results and the timing and structure of the county game. Some shifts this year to get more, certainly into July, but you've still got a big gap in August. Do you think enough is being done yet this year to create more white ball cricket? The one thing I did notice in the first round of games is there were some very decent tracks and some very decent first inning scores. Whether that's a trend or just the fact that groundsmen have had more time to work on wickets, I don't know, but it felt a little bit more encouraging to me.
Yeah, look, it's a very interesting debate, and we could probably spend hours on it. The whole international failure versus the counties. It's the same in all sports. If the international team does well, it's all down to the international setup. If the international team fails, it's all the county's fault or the club's fault. Yeah. I've seen it in rugby, see it in football, and it's just rubbish. Absolute, and it's lazy. And the groundsmen get blamed, for England's performances in the Ashes. It's just absolute garbage. I'm really sorry. I get really annoyed about it. The groundsmen in this country are amazing. They work incredibly hard. We see it at Hove, and I see it across the whole country. And it's lazy journalism, quite frankly. And the structure needs to be altered. It's not the county's fault that England, got selection wrong in the Ashes.
Well, it's not the county's fault that Ollie Pope standing to put outside his off stump.
How's that the county's fault?
No, it isn't.
It's just it really does wind a lot of us up, quite frankly, and it's not helping the game. We have to have a sensible, grown-up conversation about this whole white ball, red ball debate. If we believe red ball cricket is really important, and we do at Sussex, we have 4 days cricket in August at Hove this year. And that's our 4 home 50 over games. That's a nonsense.
Yeah. No,
it's not workable. So at some point we have to bite the bullet and say, right, let's play red ball all summer and white ball all summer, and let the players choose which one they want to play. Some will play a bit of both. As we're seeing with England, you can't play both all the time because you get burnt out. And we're getting more and more, I think, more and more to a point where players are choosing what they want to do, often down to what their agents want or what they want or how much money they're going to get. We can't fight that. So let's not fight it. Just say if you want to have a white ball career, go and do that. If you want to play Test cricket, and not everybody can have a white ball career. There are 300 English professional cricketers who don't play in the 100.
You can support the Test part of that better by making it more lucrative or more interesting, and the only way to do that is to promote it, nurture it, and in the right way. And that, I think most cricket fans would feel that's where possibly the ECB has not done a great job. It's kind of just assumed the county game would always be there. The great complaint I read this season was, I think took a long time for an ECB tweet to go out to say, hey, it's the first day of the county season. Get on down to your local county. Didn't see much of that.
Well, look, there has been a lot of criticism, and I think some of it's justified. There's been a massive focus on white ball cricket because of 2015,
and it won a World Cup.
And they won a World Cup in 2019. It's the pendulum has just swung too far.
Yep.
And we've got to swing it back. a little bit, and we've got to work out what the right answer is going forward, so that both have to find a way of coexisting, because neither of them are going away unless people make decisions, the wrong decisions, which create that environment where one withers. And at the moment, that's the risk, that people have forgotten about the test team and the red ball game. And also, let's be honest, some poor decisions have been made. And I'm not going to go into detail, but we all know that. We can see it. They've won one test in 17. So, start, high performance review needs to start looking at the setup first, not
a bit closer to home rather than what's around. Yeah, I kind of get that. I've got two more questions for you, Rob. One I hope's a gentle volley outside of off stump for you.
I'll probably nick it.
Well, you'll probably nick it. I don't think you will. It was actually you've kind of touched on it. I just wanted to give you a chance just to talk a little bit about the phenomenal work of the Sussex Foundation, which sort of sits under you and within Sussex cricket, doesn't it? You talked a little bit about links with the community. We as Guerilla Cricket worked with John and his team last year. I think we raised about £6,000 for the In the Bag campaign, working with the Brighton and Hove Food Foundation, and we loved it. It was a great relationship. We just got stuck in and we did some great stuff together, and we're really pleased with that. Tell us just a few things that the foundation is doing at the moment, because often that work people on the outside sometimes just don't see that, and it's a huge part of what counties do. Tell us a little bit about the work of Sussex with the foundation.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's integral to Sussex cricket, and John Philby was chair of that.
Now chair,
Now John has stepped up to be chair of the Sussex Cricket Limited whole organisation. So we'll have to find a new chair for the foundation. Gary Wallace-Taylor looks after the foundation and fundamentally looks after all of the recreational game, as I touched on earlier. So everything to do with our recreational growing and developing cricket runs through our regional managers and our coaches in the foundation department, as well as doing other activity which you touched on in the bag, which we worked with you on, and thank you very much for your support on that. And we that was a project that we were very proud of, working through COVID and through providing. We all saw how much food poverty there was and still is, sadly. We also have sporting memories programs where we have. There we go.
There you go.
I told you I'd get interrupted.
He's got a watch. Your dog's wearing a watch. He's going. You've had Rob too long. I want my breakfast.
So we have sporting memories programs that we run across the county, where we invite people in who are suffering a little bit from dementia, to help them, talk about sports. A massive thing for people to talk about. We have a mental health and wellbeing hub, which we launched during COVID as well, where people can go onto the Sussex Mental Health and Wellbeing Hub and look at all sorts of advice and help if they're struggling in whatever way they may be struggling. And we've all seen how mental health over the last couple of years has been a real issue for lots of people. So on top of the cricket, which is the core thing that the foundation do, we do have a lot of other activity as well.
Well, that's great to hear. Okay, so my last question is: you had a 5-year plan. You're sitting, if you like, where you are now. You're looking back on those 5 years. In 5 years' time, you're looking back. If you had one wish for Sussex in the next 5 years, when you're looking back and you're going, okay, here's what we've done, what would it be? How would you summarise success after 5 years?
I think it's very easy, really. I think it's just having a growing and vibrant game across all aspects. I think cricket is, ironically, I think cricket's in a stronger position now than it's probably ever been, actually, in terms of interest in the sport. We're going through some challenging times, but the sport will come through those, and I think the sport has a huge and very vibrant future.
Well, that is a fantastic note on which to finish. Rob, Andrew, thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute delight having you on Guerilla Cricket.
My pleasure, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Guerilla Cricket.
Revolutionary cricket commentary.